that's like you said. We're gonna put some stuff up and see what hits. And maybe these billionaires, these deeply uncharismatic, bullshitting billionaires who are just lecturing you, will convince people to tamp down on their populist urges.
I mean, if I'm Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, I think I am pretty psyched about maybe these guys getting in the Democratic primary, even just being on the scene, because it is like, now I don't have to sort of like talk theoretically or, conceptually. I can just say, like, look at that guy.
Look at him. He's from 5'5", and he's screeching at you in this reedy voice about big gulps.
Exactly.
Yeah, I won't pay taxes, but you can't drink a soda.
But here's the thing. I think that guys like Bloomberg joining the race and expanding the rightward bound of the field also benefits people like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, and helps them kind of escape some of the criticism they're going to be receiving from the left.
I think that's absolutely right. Let's put this. This is a pretty funny tweet by Amy Klobuchar.
Oh, this is wonderful.
This
is so. I'm a member of the DSA, and this is we're talking about endorsing this as our next big platform.
This is Senator Amy Klobuchar, who is supposedly contemplating jumping into the race, and I
don't think so.
Here it is. The American workforce is changing, and there isn't one path to success. I've introduced bipartisan legislation. That could go so many different, like when you say the American workforce is changing and there isn't one path to success, like it could be opening up. And that's why I am introducing a plan to support people who want to work in non-commercial endeavors. And we're going to provide stipends for people who are doing social services and teaching. No, that's not where it goes.
So I tried to understand this. I consider myself a relatively intelligent person. And here's my guess, just from reading this. I don't know what that is.
I haven't even finished the whole thing yet.
Oh, God, I thought you did.
No, sorry. I've introduced bipartisan legislation with Senator Sass, that's Ben Sass, to allow people to use tax-advantaged savings accounts to pay for educational expenses like skills training, apprenticeships, and professional development. In other words, we're going to do 529s, and instead of just paying for college and private school now, you can also use that for stuff that may not be accredited, like for-profit universities or other places like that. So we're going to deny funds to the U.S. government and put it in the hands of people who, may be scrupulous, but probably not.
As well, the people who have that brewing point in the South, the people who actually do need skills training and professional development, things like that, don't have the means to
save money.
They don't have the means to pay for it, and they would not have had the means to save for it. Like, would I be using this account? I don't know. I mean, but podcasting, gets obsoleted at some point, and it's replaced with AI or those Korean mukbang videos or whatever. And I need a new job, but I don't think I'd take advantage of the tax. I don't have any tax advantage accounts.
Well, but this is
when you're low income, a tax credit doesn't do that much for you.
No, the idea that you're going to have the idea that you're going to increase savings by just simply meaning that you can avoid taxes by putting is absurd. This is a giveaway to wealthy people. Right. And to the extent that they use it. I mean, so
it also echoes Paul Ryan, frankly. Paul Ryan would say all the time that, you remember he literally had a proposal that I want to give poor people life coaches to help them manage their finances and plan. And it was like,
give them like a tax advantage savings account.
He should get the wall for that. Seriously.
And again, I remember.
I would take a free life coach.
Oh yeah,
right.
Oh, yeah, I could really
again,
one.
Upper middle class people would definitely take a free life coach.
I will take a free life coach.
Yes,
I've been begging that for a long time,
but not for being totally broke.
Maybe now the children of the professional managerial class will finally get to go to college.
But it is amazing though. Like there's something. I think what stands out about this, at least in my mind, is it's one thing to not be embracing the current and the energy of things like Medicare for all and the surge of, let's just say, social democracy broadly. But the fact that this actually it's not like I support a Medicare buy-in instead of Medicare for all. This is like, I want to run on George W. Bush 2000. I like a compassionate conservative PPI that basically ends up benefiting wealthy people. That is the level of disconnect there, and this speaks to her staff and everybody.
Well,
it's awe-inspiring.
When I read this, I think of like
internal subterfuge.
When I see this, I think of like you see a commercial shot or some video shot, and the lighting is really bad,
right?
Or someone has a piece of hair sticking up, and I think like, oh, the crew hates that person. They're not going to tell them that they've got,
so we should tweet this out.
Snots. And they're like, oh, this is going to be great. When people realize that you've paired with Ben Sass on this. Like, I don't even know, like, I don't even think what's his face? Chuck Todd looks at this and goes, "Wow!" I don't think there's anybody like left.
I think Ben Sass. If you're working with Ben Sass, you think he's a good guy, and we could reach across the aisle. I mean, you're a sucker. That's it, plain and simple. And Ben Sass says, I think if we're talking about throwing stuff up and seeing what works in a way to dissuade people from developing class consciousness, I think Ben Sass has a very dangerous tack there.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And maybe we need a solution to it that risks the imagination of a new kind of possibility.
The law coming soon.
What is it? Say, repeat it one more time.
And maybe we need a solution to it that risks the imagination of a new kind of possibility.
I'm not ready to take those risks. That sounds risky.
You remember Ben Sass's face after Bill Maher said the thing that he got in trouble for? That was funny.
Is there an acronym we can come out of there? RI of a new kind of
and maybe we need a solution to it that risks the imagination of a new kind of possibility.
Do you know what that means?
The Artian Cup Act coming soon.
Yeah, I got to hear it again.
Risks the imagination of a new kind of possibility.
A solution to it that risks the imagination of a new kind of possibility.
Risks you put the imagination at risk, so you gamble with it. We'll gamble the risk. We'll gamble the imagination of possibility.
There's a possibility you will lose your imagination.
Well, wait a second. Honestly, for the life of me, I can't figure out what this means.
Well, it starts with an it, so it probably depends on the antecedent of it.
It sounds like you translated the phrase "audacity of hope" into 80 different languages and then back into English.
Exactly.
Audacity of hope translated into Swahili and back into English.
That's the way that they come up with website names. That's the way they come up with website names, I think. It's they do a lot of just cross-translating until they just sort of it's so far away.
Yeah,
and
but
this
is not people
Baboo.com, and it started out as...
And that's what his books are like, too. It's just all full of crap like that. He talks about going on... Sorry, this was a while ago, but I vaguely remember he talked about going on some corporate retreat. Nice. That was kind of like one of those stupid Primal Scream type things, for the freaking C-suite. And that was one where he paid some consultant, some fake guru, a hell of a lot of money to lead them on this thing, to get them get the C-suite recharged and ready to tackle the challenges of a new business day. So I think hiring consultants, paying a lot of money to consultants who ultimately don't ever do anything, that's something Howard Schultz
that's part of the course.
Yeah.
Well, I think wealthy people do that, broadly speaking. I think wealthy people do that all the time. Consultants is the whole thing.
I've just received a point from Sean, my woke bae, who's in a union, and he has noted that unions do not charge for apprenticeship programs. They actually pay you to work in them. So this tweet is not talking about good union jobs when they say apprenticeships. They're talking about some neoliberal serfdom garbage.
I feel like Sean is risking the imagination of a new kind of possibility when he says that.
I think Amy Klobuchar is saying, like, maybe you could start a podcast.
Well, you know what it is? It's more personal responsibility bullshit,
right, well, that's
which
why
I'm very opposed to. I'm opposed to personal responsibility. Yes. I want less of it, far less of it than I currently have. Right. I cannot manage my own affairs. I spend,
You're well dressed. I mean, you.
Oh, I thank you.
Show,
yeah, I mean, I'll take responsibility for that. But,
right.
That's kind of consuming a lot of my time. I can't. I remember when I used to buy the health insurance on the public markets and on the exchanges, and I just spend 15 minutes doing this, and then I think, I don't want responsibility anymore. I don't want this. I want a bureaucrat to decide what health insurance I get. I want to be put on the road to serfdom if it means I don't have to look at this fucking website.
Diane Abbott, I think she's on the labor front bench, but a couple years ago, and she was very treated, and they still are treated in a very marginal way by the British press, which is unbelievable. But she said that point. I think actually, she was contesting leadership before Corbyn when it was Ed Miliband, and she didn't go anywhere but there was a segment where they were talking about all of these like Blairite interventions and things like the NHS, and she's like, poor people don't need to have to make more choices and more responsibilities. They already have more than you do. They already have far more stress, far more things to deal with. And this is not liberatory. It's actually like choice is oppressive. Mm-hmm. She effectively flipped that. And they were all just like, I didn't know. They didn't buy it.
Let me ask you about this. I don't know if you have more you want to talk about the 2020 candidates at this point.
Yeah, if you want. Whatever you want.
I mean, what was your sense of Kamala Harris's rollout?
I mean, it was very successful for her, and I think that's reflected in the poll numbers. Which again, it's early; it doesn't really frickin' matter. But it seemed to go pretty smoothly, and you have the whole kind of contretemps from the left, all this criticism of her prosecutorial record, which I'm really of two minds about that, because some of the stuff that I've seen that's come out of her speeches about that time has been very, very gross stuff. It's there's some meat on the bones with the criticism of her record that I'm not sure whether or not that's actually going to drive a wedge between her and the voters she's going to try to appeal to. And I'm wondering, well, should this come out now, and isn't that better for her? If we're all talking about this now and then we just forget about it in a year from now when the first votes are cast, or is it good that this is out now and more people are firmed up and saying, no, I can't support this, or there needs to be some kind of
some of those clips would have been nice if they dropped a couple days before Iowa.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't think that there is enough broad-based concern in the Democratic Party that would set an alarm. I think it's will there be criticism, essentially from people of color and activists who care about criminal justice reform, who are going to provide the legitimacy of critique of her, right? Because there seems to me to be, look, the game plan for the Clinton folk, and this is not to diminish the reality of misogyny, but the game plan for the Clinton folk, and to a certain extent, the game plan of the Obama folks, which is obviously not to make a claim about the legitimacy of racism, obviously, but that is like, we're going to build this force field, and it is going to make it difficult to criticize willy-nilly about certain things. And I think with Kamala Harris, I think they're going to use, I think there's going to be this sense, and we hear a little bit of it, like, critiquing her. She's a woman, and we're talking about at a time where the energy in the Democratic Party is undoubtedly coming from women who are more or less Kamala Harris's age, and coming from people of color, particularly women. And so this is the most energized constituency, the most reliable constituency of the Democratic Party, And I think like there has to be a valid critique of that prosecutorial stuff from people who've worked on it for a long time, right? Like,
absolutely.
It has to come from people who have legitimate stakes in that issue. It can't be, folks who just don't like Kamala Harris because they like another candidate.
But also, look, like, okay, I just found out yesterday that a mother of 7 who was sent to jail because she couldn't pay her truancy fines died.